So welcome back to another episode of Ctrl Alt Speed, the podcast from Bespoke Computing. My name's Chris Pallett, and this week I'm joined by Stuart Miles from Formula Networks. Stuart, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, Chris. Good morning. Good to see you all and see everybody safe and well. Yes, I'm fine.
Have you been out for? Have you taken advantage of this new government scheme to get your dinner paid for?
No, not quite. No. Eat out to help out. I haven't yet, actually. I haven't been out to a restaurant or a pub in 6 months now. It must have been before March, well before lockdown. The last time I went out for some food was when we were working away in Edinburgh doing the Tech DCNA training. As you know, we do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Just before lockdown, actually, as lockdown was not quite there, but the week before lockdown, we were doing an event in Edinburgh, and that was the last time we had dinner out. But since then, it's been home cooking. It's been a few takeaways occasionally, but mostly home cooking. But we'll be returning at some point. I think it's just take precautions and to carry on, really. So, so in terms of the site visits and site surveys, they've continued, and the work's continued as well. But it is, like you say, very strange times, isn't it?
It is. I took my mum out for a meal, and the place we went to, normally it's a bun fight to get a table, and it was really deserted. It's quite surreal. But that first pint after lockdown, that was nectar. So yeah. So Stuart, you and I have obviously known each other for years.
We have, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has been a while. But there's going to be people that are listening to this there might be some people that don't even know who I am. So for the benefit of the listeners, tell us a bit about you. Who are you? Or in true Cilla Black style, who are you and where are you from?
I like that one. Yeah, well, I'm Stuart. Obviously, I've been working with Chris for a few years now. With many guys who's worked with in the industry since about '92, in the IT industry. And I've worked with distributors, I've worked with vendors, and I've worked with resellers as well. So I've worked at the three levels, if you like, focused on putting solutions into various types of vertical markets. So in terms of where I'm from, I guess it's my main focus is networking, hence Formula Networks tag now, my own business with that. Previously, I was working at D-Link and at Netgear, so I've worked at Vendorland, it's obviously specialising in networking, but particularly with a specialist focus on Wi-Fi in the last 10 years, really, and particularly Wi-Fi surveys. So I set up the survey division for Netgear globally using the Echo tool, and then set up my own business doing that as a consultancy, working with other resellers, working with the channel still, such as yourselves and partners, disties and manufacturers, and deliver that specialist networking requirement as and when it's needed, really. For anything that needs network connectivity is kind of where I'm at, really, with that. So it's a nice focused area, and it complements what obviously IT resellers are doing and support resellers are doing. We work together quite well. I think it's a nice little dovetail for the clients out there that you can bring different specialist skills in. And same with my customers, really. If I get a requirement for servers, as you know, I'd give you a call. And if there's anything that's coming regarding PCs as well, that kind of stuff is the same scenario there, really. So I've been around since '92. Seems like a long time now. I was delivering network training, delivering the basics of networking, and then obviously Wi-Fi surveying and installations of Wi-Fi now. So that's kind of where we're at with Formula. It's literally designed as a consultancy. We don't. The beauty of it, it's vendor agnostic, so we're not tied into any one manufacturer or another. We can just give the customer the solution for what they need within the budget that they've got, for the requirements that they have, thankfully. So we're not hell bent on putting Cisco in, for example, where it's a very good solution. There are other solutions available which are maybe more cost effective and might suit certain customers' budgets more. So it's just being flexible, really, and offering that service.
Yeah, I think that training is probably how you and I first met all those years back. I think it was the D-Link wireless training.
That's right. Yeah.
Back when, and you're absolutely right about that dovetailing piece. Obviously, we've used you for wireless surveys for our clients, and some of those surveys have been some quite specialist environments as well. So if I think about the one over in Kidderminster with that manufacturing environment,
challenging environment, some of them, yes,
yeah, it was quite a harsh environment with the potential for everything that's going on, and it just gives it just gives us the peace of mind that we can then go to that client and say, right, this is the wireless solution that's going to give you everything you need. And that's not just about today either. That's about saying, right, well, in 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, when we start looking at everything that's going to start going over the wireless. So as there's more business information kicking around, voice, multimedia, streaming, more so now, I think, with lockdown and the shift to, so we've seen, and we're also championing a big shift to clients being able to work from anywhere. I know that big slogan's been work from home. Well, sorry, work from home's not good enough. We want to work from anywhere securely. So we've got that big shift, just even down to the devices that we're moving around with. So wireless is going to, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, well,
how it stands up to that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, lots of challenging environments, like you said, in terms of the actual B2B on-site stuff. And I'm just smiling there because I know that some of the sites we've been at have been like literally freezers, giant freezers where people store food and stuff. And the barcode scanning needs to work in there just like it does outside, really. So, yeah. There's lots of different vertical markets: schools, businesses, manufacturers, hospitality. Yeah. But in terms of your piece about working from home, obviously, you and I have done that for a while now. I've done that predominantly for the last 15 years working with Vendorland. It's been the requirement. The offices are typically based in London or in another part of the world, somewhere a bit sunnier climes like in California. But you tend to work from home anyway. So for me, it's nothing too different from normal, really. But like you say, the important piece there is the work from anywhere. It's not just about working from home. And maybe moving away. I know traditionally, I think, if I'm right in saying, I think the tradition's been to move to more mobile devices. And maybe the desktop, not completely redundant, but a lot of people are moving towards, I guess now, more mobile devices that they can put a VPN client on it and literally go anywhere they want and be safe and secure in the knowledge that they can exchange information with their head office whilst being secure. So, I think that's definitely a key fundamental takeaway from this. And it's probably pushed a lot of people companies into doing that much quicker than maybe they would have done originally. So quite interesting that, really.
Yeah, that's for sure. I've seen some of the data that I've seen, especially around education. I think, if memory serves, and I might not be as spot on with this, but I heard of a university that their strategies for remote delivery, they planned that as a 4-year strategy, and they turned it around. I think it was in either 4 days or 4 weeks, something.
Wow. Okay.
Something really nuts like that.
Quite so.
So picking up what you said a few minutes ago, obviously we've had lockdown, but you're still doing the surveys. You're still getting out there. Has that changed much?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, really. Not really, not massively. I mean, obviously the site survey element requires actually going on site, but there's two parts to that, really. With the software that I use and we deliver the survey with, does give us the opportunity to survey remotely. So we can actually, with the right plans, floor plans, if they're detailed plans, scale plans, we can actually implement quite a lot of information from that. It's definitely no substitute from obviously going on site and doing proper RF testing because of the interference levels, but it does give you an ability to at least know this is roughly where we're going to put the access points. These are the wall types that we've got in there. These are the floor types. So you can generate remote surveys. The thing with the remote one, the software is always a little bit cautious, so it tends to provide maybe results are a little bit different when you actually go on site. So you might find that when you're doing it remotely, you put in the information and it might say 20 access points. Whereas you actually go physically on site and physically test it, you think, oh, actually, we can get away with 15 or 16 here. So there's a great value in going to site still. And I mean, the good thing in terms of the lockdown period is the sites have been pretty empty. So in fact, for me, it's probably been, although that's not ideal because you want it in a working environment, it means access as long as it's open. I can pretty much, especially like the warehousing ones, I've just gone in after shift, before shift, and done the survey, and then returned back with the data that we need to produce the recommendation, really. So for me, it's been fairly good to get out and do that. Obviously, during lockdown, when it was strict lockdown, we didn't go out, but it's slowly picking up now. We've got quite a few surveys to do. I mean, the schools still are back, so we tend to find that is the surveys there now are coming at us during the summer, but this time of year they tend to close down. It's installation traditionally, but we've still got a few surveys to do there. So yeah, remote surveys. Since the COVID, I think the ways that there's not really a new way. It's just we've been doing more remote surveys than the balance before was probably 70% on site and 30% remote, whereas it's probably a 50-50 or 60-40 in favour of remote at the moment. But I think with the right precautions, the hand sanitizers, the masks, then I think as long as they're happy for us to go into social distance, we're happy to go and do the surveys right now, really. And like I said, most sites that I've been attending have been very, very low numbers of people on those sites. Offices have been empty, warehouses have had minimal staffing, and I've tended to go in after the shifts, once the shift's finished, to mitigate that even further, really. So yeah, so interesting times, but it goes on with precaution, really. So it's actually been quite nice just doing the surveys. It's a bit like The Shining, really, in some of these places, though. You go in, it's just you and the caretaker. It's like, wow, this is a bit spooky. It's in total darkness. Wow, okay.
Yeah, which is quite eerie in itself. So we've obviously talked about what's going on in terms of the surveying, making sure that we've got the right wireless infrastructure there. Why are we doing this? Why is this important for businesses?
That's a great question for those guys listening at the moment, because it's really important, because you want to get the solution as right as you possibly can, is obviously the first thing that springs to mind. But it's also about the amount of money you spend on kit. If you talk to some vendors, they might offer a free remote survey where they do a similar sort of thing with some kind of heat mapping tool. We use Echo, which is the professional tool that's endorsed by the likes of Cisco and all the major manufacturers now. So it's an expensive tool, but it's very, very accurate. And we can nail it down to the exact access point that you're using. If you've got a particular access point that you're going to use, for example, some of the surveys that we've done have been for corporate rollouts where the manufacturing site uses, let's say, Cisco, and they use a certain model everywhere they go. So we can use that model. If they've got a model template, we can put that in and use that model if it's in the software. And most of the time it is. So the reasons why we do it, first of all, are for accuracy.
Yeah.
Secondly, to see if there's any interference. Wi-Fi is not necessarily the most simplest thing to put in. It obviously operates on radio waves. So there's lots of other things that operate on that frequency. And you might think, oh, I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm in the middle of a field. I've got 3 barns or 3 factories here. There's not a lot going on, but you'll be surprised at how many other technological devices can interfere with that frequency. So we do it mainly.
Like microwave.
Microwave, lunchtime is the classic one. Yeah, you've got the POR sensors, you've got the automatic lights on the 2.4 GHz frequency, Bluetooth, lots of other devices, infrared doors, shutters. All these types of things can have an impact on the wireless performance. So the reason for the survey really is it's not like just putting a cable in, you know how long you can go, that's it. You've got your 100 meters and that's your distance. Yeah. With Wi-Fi, there are a lot more other factors that come into play really. So we've been to so many sites where the school or the business has got a really old creaking wired network, want to buy a load of mobile devices for an application. And it's at that point where you have to say, well, look, that's great. It's great that you're looking at those applications. It's great that you're looking at mobility, but you've got a 10100 network. You might have some hubs in there, God forbid. So it's just making sure that you're not wasting your money really. I'll give you a classic example of why the value in the survey. Went to school about 18 months, 2 years ago now, that had issues with their Wi-Fi. It was wireless N, so it was a reasonably good technology. It was dual band, and it was from a very reputable vendor, decent APs. It was old, it was out of warranty, and they couldn't access the controller unit, but it was still working. But they were complaining of speed and drop off. But when I did the site survey, obviously there was a few things with the Wi-Fi that needed improving, for sure. But the first thing that came to mind, the very first thing, was the speed test, and you could see straight away that 150 people trying to share a 17 meg internet connection. So 40 of those devices are streaming YouTube. So at that point, the survey highlighted straight away, well, look, it's great that you're looking at this, but please, before you spend your money on that, go and fix the internet connection and get yourself an upgrade there, because that's always going to be a bottleneck anyway. But at that sort of speed, it's just not feasible, really. And lo and behold, their old solutions suddenly started working very, very well once they put a new internet connection in. So it can be things as simple as that, really. And the other obviously value and the reason why we survey is to get a good kit list of what we need to put in, where to locate the access points, if there are any risks, if there's any observations of any problems we might see in terms of obstructions, physical problems, environmental problems, all these kind of things.
Yeah, and I think that was probably the one of the more recent surveys you did for us. The access points were mounted high to keep them out of the way, so that they weren't going to be. We hadn't got to worry about physical damage, and because in that environment there were lots being automotive, there's lots of vehicles and stuff moving around, and I didn't consider. I thought, oh, actually, by previously making a recommendation to put the access points up high, I thought that was a good thing because they're out of the way. And then in reality, when you surveyed and turned around and said, well, actually, Chris, you probably need to move them, bring them down the wall.
A little bit, because it's client device. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And that's sometimes you just think, oh, it needs to be there to broadcast out. But you then, and I know about the whole wave direction and all the rest of that jazz, but yeah, the placement is so important, so crucial,
and especially in the warehousing environments. I mean, often there we'd use directional antennas. That's when the antenna patterns come into play even more then, because of the reflections off the metal racking often give you problems. So that's an area where those sort of environments are always very, very good to look at. The other reason, and the final reason, I think, obviously lots of other reasons, but the other reason I'd point out is that when you're doing a site survey, like I said, some vendors might offer a free site survey remotely. They might use some kind of basic heat map tool. They might even use the software that's built into their product, which is very, very basic typically. It doesn't give you all the information that you necessarily need, but it'll give you an heat map and tell you where to put the APs. Now, that's great, but sometimes they just, because the controllers are so good these days, they might just say, right, it's a secondary school, rather than put an AP in every single room. The controller will sort out the channels, the controller will sort out the RF, and we'll just do that. Now, that's great, but if you look at the cost of doing that, the cost of the survey, when you go and do it, you might only have 50 or 60 devices or 100 devices, and you might have 50 APs. You might find that for site-wide coverage, you need 30 to give you enough capacity for those 100 plus maybe another 100 quite comfortably, and you're saving quite a lot of money by having that survey done, really. So,
and I think the other thing that also, what you've just said, also highlights is making consideration for the number of wireless devices you've got. And if you've got 30 iPads in a classroom, is how many wireless devices is your access point then also going to support as well?
Yeah, capacity and density issues. So we look at all that, obviously, when we do the surveys as well. And it's also having a consultative chat with the clients, if we don't already know this. Obviously, fortunately, working with you guys have got that information often before we go in. But it doesn't hurt to have that conversation when we're there and say, well, look, this is what you're using it for. Anything else in particular that you can think of, would you be using? And you can put things in there to say, well, look, do you think you'll be using it for voice in the future? Do you think you might be using it for any particularly heavy applications or specialist applications? And it's just having that conversation, isn't it, really? And just building a solution to fit their needs, really.
Yeah. So you mentioned Wi-Fi 6. So
Wi-Fi 6.
The benefit of the non-tech is, what is that?
Well, it's just a newer flat platform. It's still dual band. Wi-Fi 6 it still works on 5 gig and 2.4 gig, but it enhances the 2.4 gig element, whereas AC didn't really touch too much on that. So there's more frequency, more speed and throughput by bonding the channels, and there's also more speed and throughput on the 5 gig channels as well with AX. Of course, completely backward compatible with the older standards. So if you put an AX in and you've got AC devices, it's not going to work. It's still going to work on AC, or it's still going to work on the previous standards. They've recalled it Wi-Fi 6 because it was getting rather confusing with B, A, B, M, back to AC, and it's like so they've decided with the 6th generation of Wi-Fi, they're going to call it Wi-Fi 6, and they've retrograded the old standards now.
So basically what we're saying is faster Wi-Fi, more capacity Wi-Fi. When was the last time for the techies listening, when was the last time you come across a hub?
Oh, I can't remember. I was thinking that, therefore I haven't seen a hub for a long time. I came across a 10100 switch the other day, which is quite common, not too common these days, but not a hub, not for a while, not for a long while.
It's been a couple of years. Yeah, we still bump into 10100. Within the last couple of years we've had a hub. What do you think we're going to see over the next couple of years? Do you think do we have any big changes, big improvements that we need to be excited about and looking forward to getting our hands on?
I think for the next couple of years with Wi-Fi, it's mainly based around that 6. A lot of stuff coming from that. In terms of the technology, I guess, as a whole, I mean, you know a lot more about that than me, to be fair. But I suppose with the VPN side, that's going to be quite important going forward. More and more people are going to see a massive uptake on that. We already have seen it from businesses for many years, but I think you're going to see a lot more home users. But the biggest thing, I think, the challenge is when you do your tech days and your tech bites every week, I think it's good information, and you talk about security and cyber security quite a lot, which is so important now. I mean, it's frightening now how clever these phishing these hackers are, and I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for people working from home, for people using the internet. It's recognising the dodgy emails, but it's not just the emails; it's the links. You can buy a new product within the technology stand, go and plug it in at home, follow what you think is a right link in the manual, get it slightly wrong, and then before you know it, you're on a fictitious site trying to get hold of your computer.
Yeah.
So it's really scary. I mean, I brought a Canon printer not so long ago just as a backup device, and it was very interesting. I typed the URL in wrong. Luckily, I mean, I'm obviously on technology. I saw it, and I thought that doesn't look like a Canon website to me. But I got one digit wrong on the website URL, and it took me through to. And if you Google search these things, sometimes these guys are paying, and they're at the top of the list, and you can click on them unbeknownst to thinking you're on Canon or a particular vendor, and you're not. So that's quite an interesting. Yeah, that's a challenge for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, that's quite scary. In some of how people are being quite clever with that one character out of place. We put a lot of focus into security for our clients, and we take that onion approach. So we have the layers and layers of security. So antivirus by itself, endpoint detection and response, as the industry is now moving towards. That by itself just isn't enough, and it's saying, well, actually, we're going to have some antivirus, we're going to have some spam filtering, we're going to have some web filtering, we're going to have some VPN, we're going to have this, we're going to have that, and so even the layers that go in there, they're now evolving as well.
Yes, yeah,
so
yeah.
We've just we're in the process at the moment with our email hygiene platform. We're now in the process where we're doing upgrades for our clients. So when they get an email through that has a web link, using the same technology that Microsoft use for their safe links, we're now going through the emails, obviously automated. I'm not there reading everybody's email. My word, that would be a ball ache. So, but what's happening is we're scanning every single email that comes through, and where there's a website address, we're taking that address and wrapping it around with a link checker. So the email would come through to you, and then you would click on that link, and that link would be checked before you're even allowed to go and see it.
So it's like a mini sandbox, really. I guess. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I like that. So
actually, what's happening? If you think back to that concept of onions and layers, the emails come through. It's gone through a spam and virus checker on the email. The link, you then click on the link. The link gets checked by the safe link technology. It's then checked by your web filter, and then if something else does actually happen, your antivirus gets another bite as well.
So you've got you really are making it difficult for people to sort of breach it, and that sounds like it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's quite interesting to see how things are evolving. It's very interesting to see as well how these to use the term bad actors, to use the proper term, how they're evolving and coming up with these new ideas. And I went to a vendor conference, would have been 2 or 3 years ago now, with ESET, the antivirus vendor. So that's our vendor of choice for AV. And I want to say Tony Alscombe, I think his name is, and he was talking about virus writers, people writing computer viruses, writing all the bad stuff. And he was describing it as an industry in its own right. Actually, it's very, very clever, some of the stuff that they do. So you've got a whole business that's built around software engineering, because you're writing these viruses, these programs, Trojans, malware, whatever label you want to use. they've got a right to a good standard because everyone's out to get you in terms of your antivirus vendors. You've got a global distribution model because you've got to get it out there.
You become a mini industry, like you say.
All the marketing and the promotion and to get this out there. So what you're talking about is a global software distribution business. Ultimately, it's not a nice product that you're getting out there because it's a computer virus, but there's some brains behind it.
Clever stuff, isn't it, what they're doing with it? And like you say, with the Wi-Fi side, I suppose WPA3 is the next version of that, which is included in AX. And clients are starting to get more secure. You're starting to see clients come out with WPA3 security, which is the next level of security from a client point of view. But I think it's just protecting everybody. That's the biggest change, I think. People working from home, even people that maybe just not working from home but wanted to surf the internet. You see the adverts of VPNs everywhere now. I think that's going to become more commonplace. As more you hear more and more breaches, I think it's the only way really. It's coming, isn't it? It's starting to come.
Yeah. Do you think? Sometimes it feels that you can't go a day without hearing about another breach that's devastated billions of people's information and has costed millions of pounds for disruption and all the rest of it. Do you think that maybe we're becoming desensitized to the fact that this happens?
Possibly, because like you say, it's like anything else, isn't it? Really? I suppose if the media, or you hear it a lot in the media and the press, you not become switch off to it, but you're hearing it so often that it doesn't no longer surprises people as much, or doesn't scare people as much, or doesn't give people as much concern. I suppose it's a bit like the COVID, isn't it? The coronavirus, the attitude from many, it seems that a lot of people have followed it very, very well in England, haven't they? But you tend to find that people get complacent very quickly. And I think if you've not seen it firsthand yourself, I'm not saying people don't believe it, but they don't sort of take it seriously, is not the word, but if you know what I mean, they're not kind of really, they're not as maybe strict with themselves as they would be if they maybe been a doctor or a nurse and sees that every day. I suppose it's because we get so many images, don't we, of death and destruction and bad news that there's only so much somebody can take before they kind of like switch off a little bit from anything, really. So I guess that's similar sort of scenario with this, isn't it? You've got people talking about these breaches every day, the GDPR breaches. Twitter was hacked recently, wasn't it? With overtook, was it Barack Obama's account and a few other people's? I saw that on the news last week. That was quite interesting.
Yeah, there was about a dozen or 2 dozen really high profile accounts. You have to wonder what was in the private messages.
Yeah. Bill Gates was one of them apparently as well. But
Elon Musk as well, I think.
Yeah, there was a few on there. It's like you just think, well, that's quite comprehensive. They're getting into those sort of areas, but so I think the challenge is, I think security is definitely going to be, whatever we do IT, I think security is going to be the massive for the next several years. I think it's going to be an area where a lot of focus is put on.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think that's also needed. And certainly we're looking at cybersecurity a lot with our customers, and we're looking at even frameworks like Cyber Essentials, ISO 27001, and how we get some of that good practice in without necessarily fully applying the standard, to make it so that the basics, the bare minimum, the stuff is there.
It's in place, ready to go then, isn't it? That's what you want, isn't it? More layers you can have, as I say, the more secure it's going to be. I guess it's very similar to car security in that sense, isn't it? The more levels you put in within that vehicle, the more chance you've got of slowing somebody down and not getting it, really, or if they're going to get it, then it's being tracked or whatever, if you've got that sort of technology built into it. So it makes a lot of sense, really, yeah.
You do quite a lot in the education space. Are there any other verticals that are big for you?
Pretty much. I mean, I'm very flexible on the vertical market. Traditionally, it's been education, hospitality, and warehousing, but pretty much, I go from arena surveys and stadium survey, right down to sort of professional users' home offices where they've got multiple buildings, point-to-point links. In terms of the sectors, I guess, then hospitality, manufacturing, and education are all sectors that I'm regularly involved with. NHS and hospitals as well from time to time as well. Holiday businesses, you name it. There's pretty much an open. I mean, we did a few surveys a while back for things like town centres and shopping centres, which is a slightly different thing. But yeah, the principle's the same. It's just the scale, isn't it, really, and the challenges that you might have with the different antenna patterns. But yeah, cover quite a few different verticals there.
Last question from me then, Stuart. One thing we're asking all of our guests on the podcast to answer is, what is the one piece of technology that you can't live without?
That's a really good one, really, for a technical person, because I use so much different technology day to day. I suppose from a working point of view, I couldn't live without my Sidekick and my Echo tool, because that's my lifeblood in terms of surveying. I think from a personal point of view, it's probably the phone, because I use the phone traditionally. I use the phone for actually making phone calls on, but I know a lot of people can't live without their social media. I'm not too fussed about that, but certainly for I would say probably the phone from a personal point of view, because it carries everything these days, doesn't it? It's got you've got everything on there, all different apps for different. There's an app for everything now, isn't there? So
there's an app for that. It's got our whole lives there, hasn't it?
Yeah, probably a pretty boring answer, but I said a phone or my Echo Sidekick and tool for me surveys, and for personal, I suppose it's the phone, because the phone covers both personal and business, so it's quite important, really, I guess. Other than that, I suppose storage actually is quite useful as well. There's quite a few. I guess storage backup. That's another key thing.
We could talk for an hour on backup, Stuart, I'm sure.
I know. Such a massive area, isn't it? But it's traditionally always the area people think, I haven't backed up or I haven't done it manually. Automatic backup's such a cool thing and such a useful thing that it's just there, isn't it, automatic for you if you have an issue with a device. You just switch it over and away you go again.
Yeah. Well, that's
so important, isn't it? And especially for your security and people with this ransomware stuff. If you back up your machines, then those files are safe, and nobody. If your machine goes, that's one thing. But if you lose the data, that's
that's my viewpoint on ransomware, very much so. And you hear about these big organisations that are spending a lot of money paying the ransoms, and that's there's a thing on LinkedIn kicking around in the last few days about some big organisation that was negotiating with the people that wrote the ransomware, and they were negotiating had the ransom.
Wow.
For me, it's if you go back to that onion concept, you put enough layers in theory, it shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not bomb-proof, but if you've got a robust backup strategy,
exactly,
then you should be able to get yourself back. And what is the business case for paying a ransom? There is not really.
No. I guess it's not if you've done a backup successfully and you're keeping that data secure and safe, regardless of the device that you're using. That's the key thing, isn't it, really? So.
Yeah. Wouldn't want to be for Garmin right now, anyway.
No, true. I said they can itself, isn't it, really?
Yeah, that was crazy. When you start reading stuff about an organisation that's so entwined in our lives, as in fact I've got my Garmin smartwatch on now, and when you see something as ingrained in our lives as that, and they shut down their global infrastructure, I think is the extent of it. They just literally turn everything off.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about that scale of disruption, that's
a lot. Yeah. That's quite a lot in it.
Yeah. So, Stuart, I'm really grateful for you coming.
No worries.
The listeners, how can they find out more about Formula Networks? Obviously, if they want help with a wireless survey, we can put you in touch and coordinate.
Yeah.
How can they find out more about you?
Well, to find out more about me on LinkedIn, you can follow me, Stuart Miles, on LinkedIn. I've also got obviously a website for Formula, so formulanetworks.co.uk. www.formulanetworks.co.uk. Obviously, that will give you some information about the sort of services and things we can do there. Or they can drop me an email on my email address, which is smiles@formulanetworks.co.uk.
So, love your email address, Stuart. I've got to say.
Smiles. Yeah. So it's an easy one to remember.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thanks, Chris.